So I loved how you were talking about this green book specifically, and you wrote these two first.
So I wrote Branding is Sex first.
Oh,
So
this is the first one that came
this
first.
is the first one.
Okay. And you are known as the dominatrix of marketing.
The brand dominatrix.
The brand dominatrix. Yeah. I saw that on your Instagram and I was like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. So you've worked for companies like Dell. Mm-hmm. What other ones have you worked for?
Oh, gosh. Let's see. I've worked with Dell. You can't remember when you think about him here. I've worked with a lot of really cool like B2B technology, professional services companies, Dell, SAP, worked with divisions of Amazon, worked with, gosh, why can't I remember them right now?
But what made you want to get started in something like this? You're not like a 5-year-old little girl and you're like, I think that I want to grow up and be a marketing expert. What got you into this?
So I always tell the story about how I grew up in a brandless existence, which as the brand dominatrix, the person who's like the queen of branding, I grew up in a brandless household. So on my father's side of the family, I'm first generation born American. My father came from Hungary. His parents came from Hungary, Holocaust and Hungarian Revolution survivors, right?
Wow.
On my mother's side of the family, my mother was first generation born American and her parents came from Russia, Romania. And so, this Eastern European background. So if you know anything about Eastern Europeans, they're very pragmatic, practical, down to earth kinds of people.
Checklist.
Yes. 100%.
Structure, all of that.
Yeah, all of that. And so as a child, when everyone was playing with Barbie, my parents were like, no Barbie for you. You have Bobby. She was like a non-name brand doll. I remember specifically, you might remember this from when you were a kid. There was this Barbie. It was a head. And it was like a full-size head with
like
the hair.
cut off at the shoulders?
Yeah, like right here. And just the décolletage in the hair. And you could put makeup on her and do her hair and
The
stuff.
rich kids had that. I didn't have that growing up.
Well, I didn't have that either. I asked for that. I didn't get that. What I got was like a head with like auburn hair with a suction cup on the bottom of it. And you put it on the table and you could do it up and whatever. And so I grew up in this world where I was attracted to brands but didn't actually know why. And I always tell people things like I never even had a McDonald's hamburger until I was 16 and I had a driver's license and I could drive myself to the McDonald's store.
No kidding.
So I became fascinated with like, what is the attraction here? What are these relationships? Like, why are people so emotionally connected to this?
Yeah.
And I just can't not do it. There's a story, I think it's at the beginning of Branding is Sex, where I talk about I'm sort of like the John Wooden of branding. John Wooden, legendary basketball coach. He'd drive through the mean streets of LA. He'd see kids playing on the playground and he'd,
snatch them up.
Yeah, he'd snatch them up.
Not in a weird way.
No.
It wasn't like a child.
He'd jump out and he'd like adjust
That's
hand
position
and turn their bodies and things like that and be like, see you, kid. I was the same way with brands. And it's been a lifelong fascination for me. And my very, very first job when I finished my undergraduate degree, I worked in as high tech of technology as you could possibly get at AT&T Bell Labs.
I remember when they were Bell.
Yeah. That was a long time ago. AT&T Bell Labs, there were like Nobel Prize winning scientists walking up and down the hallways in white coats. And I was the lone marketing person. And I was like the college girl. Right.
Yeah.
And, being in that environment, I was in a position where as the lone marketing person, I was tasked with the idea of creating markets, which bringing buyers and sellers together. So high tech, which in many cases was just technology for technology's sake, and human beings. How do we bring these things together?
That's the question. That's the golden.
Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Listen, I'm interrupting my own show because I want to give you something. Now, you guys all want to get on more stages. I've got a free resource for you of stages that are just clamoring for guests. They need guests on a daily, weekly, sometimes monthly basis. This is my podcast database. Now, what I'm going to do is have you go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put in your information there, I'm going to send this to you totally for free. Open up this database. You're going to click through it, find the next podcast that's relevant to your topic, hit the application button, show up on their podcast, get in front of their people, and share your content. Remember, mariannehickman.com/database. Let's get you unlocked.
I love that you said create a market. I just recently this week, as we've been preparing for the show, I've been like, what is marketing? Because that is a word that by definition in business has probably been more elusive than it should be for me.
Sure.
Right?
I tell people all the time, I'm like, marketing is creating a market.
That's the thing.
It literally means bringing buyers and sellers together.
And that's what every Saturday, my daughter and I, we pack up our bins. She has a store that she brings to a market, and she brings her little crocheted animals, and we sit there and the buyers walk by and she sells, hundreds of dollars worth of stuff every week. I'm like, and it just clicked in my brain this week. I'm like, oh my gosh,
that's marketing.
What marketing is.
Yeah.
It is the venue. It is the place where people come together to find each other.
Right. And I think marketing has taken on a life of its own, because now you look across business and everybody says that everything is marketing. I mean, to some extent, this is marketing.
Sure, yeah.
Right? We're bringing buyers and sellers together. Maybe somebody's interested in buying something that you're selling or buying something that I'm selling.
Right.
But we're creating the means to bring somebody with a need and a desire together with a good or a service. That's all that marketing is.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because marketing is the thing that precedes sales.
It has to. Yeah.
Which is something completely different. And when you try to do sales without having first done marketing, it's really difficult to connect.
Oh my gosh. I ran a sales floor for a multi-million-dollar company for years. And when you get on the phone and they have no idea who you are or what you're talking about or how they got there, that's so much unnecessary hard work.
So I explain to people all the time when I'm trying to sell clients all the time on this idea, like you need to do marketing, right? They think all we need to do is leads. We just need leads, right? I said, imagine if you would a world where you had an always on marketing machine that was feeding you people who were ready to buy. So the role of marketing is three things. Number one, create a halo of awareness. That's what you were talking about there. Like you're running a multi-million-dollar sales floor. If people are doing cold outreach to people, they've never heard of who you are, how likely is it that they're going to buy? No, that's a very
1%,
heavy lift.
maybe.
You have no authority with those people. They have no relationship with you. They don't know anything about you. So the number one job of marketing, create a halo of awareness, right? Number two job of marketing, drive inbound interest. That's what we're doing here, right? We're having a conversation. It happens to be on camera and on mic. But the idea here is people are like, oh, I love what those two women are talking about.
Right.
I want to learn more.
Yeah, how do I get more of that?
Drive inbound interest. And then number three, it's about nurturing people through their own process of decision making. It used to be that sales was like this hoodoo guru stuff, right? And it was the idea you could convince people that they needed to buy something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No, it's about nurturing people through their own process of becoming aware of something, having a feeling about it, establishing a need, maybe showing them some pain, opening a wound, throwing some salt in there, whatever, right? All of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And that's the role of marketing. And marketing serves sales when it's done right. A lot of people just go straight to sales.
We butt heads so much. When I was leading that marketing floor and the sales floor, it was just like a clash. And it never made sense to me because everybody makes more money when we're not clashing. And when marketing and sales, like, what do you need? I got you. What do you need? I got you.
But why are we in a turf war?
I don't get it. When revenue was down, that's when it really got painful. Because the fingers of blame got pointed and the drama just elevated. It was crazy.
Where are my leads? Where are my leads? Right? Marketing, it's your job to give us leads. And then,
I'm like, why aren't you selling everything we're giving you? And we're like, these are all garbage. And oh gosh, it was back and forth.
Yep.
So why should the people that watch my podcast more often than not are learning to getting into speaking and personal brand. And as we were talking before we opened up the show, I was thinking about people who start podcasts. We had just had a podcast workshop last week where we helped people develop their own show. And one of the concerns that they brought up was, what do I name my show? Right? And so with my limited expertise, right, I should have leaned on you, but I said, okay, based on what I've seen, you could go one of two ways with naming your show. You can name your show after you, so it's your own name, it's your own brand.
So it's like the Marianne Hickman show.
Exactly, right? Or you can name your show like the Human Lab, which is a little bit of your name, but it's not totally. You could resell that. The On Purpose podcast with Jay Shetty, that's a show that's named something different.
Digital Social Hour with Sean Kelly.
Exactly.
Our friends who have Ignition Point. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. It has meaning. It has some kind of underlying meaning.
Right. There's a thematic element, and then that podcast then becomes resellable if you ever want to make an exit out of it.
Sure.
Right. So for people that are starting their brand, do you have any opinion on should they start a podcast? Should they not? Is that an important part of what you do? Or if it's not, what is the brand awareness that you recommend?
Yeah, no, podcast is a really interesting question. So if we can kind of reel it back and talk about branding and like what's the relationship of like, say, doing a podcast to doing a LinkedIn live show to doing a YouTube show to like whatever channel you're going to use, it all starts with who is your ideal archetypal customer
and where are they?
Where are they?
Yeah.
What do they consume? How do they get their information? What moves them? What helps them, you know, through their becoming aware of stuff and making decisions and things like that. So a lot of people think like, oh, I'm just going to stand up a podcast and it's going to be instant success, right? Well, I work with a number of clients. Like one client that I work with, they're actually a holding company of digital marketing agencies. They own a number of very large digital marketing agencies. And they're doing what we in the business refer to as multiple arbitrage, where they're sort of like building out a big business and getting private equity funding and things like that. And so they were like, we need a podcast. And then thinking about who do you need a podcast for? They said, oh, we need a podcast actually probably not just for end customers of all these individual digital marketing agencies, but potentially they need a podcast for digital marketing agency owners, right? Mm-hmm. So thinking about who is it that you have to move? Who do you need to move them? And when I say move them, it's like heart, mind, wallet. And where do they get their information? It's not a sure win for everybody. So, you know, figuring out the channel is based on who is the ideal customer. And by ideal customer, it's not just a demographic or firmographic profile, but I refer to the ideal customers like the archetype of the single human being who is most highly predictive of your success as a brand, right? So before we even started this broadcast, you asked me, you're like, who's your ideal customer? Who do you most want to work with? Yeah. Right? I'm like, this is the ideal customer for my agency. And then here's my ideal customer for me in the time of my life, the kind of work that I want to do. So who is that person? What are they like? What do they care about? What keeps them awake at night? What makes them feel successful? How do they measure themselves? You know, what makes them feel good? What makes them feel bad? What makes them feel sexy? I actually get my clients to draw a picture of who that is.
Oh, that's like, awesome.
Get out a big piece of paper, draw a picture of who that is. If they're a good listener, draw them with big ears. If they have a big heart, draw them with a big red heart.
That's a great idea.
No, it's amazing. Because then you have a very clear picture and you can see in your third eye or whatever who that person is, right? Give that person a seat at the table. So if that person listens to podcasts and they're regular consumer of podcast information, that's how you start with the positioning of your content, the positioning of your brand, right? And then from there, you can make decisions about what do I want to call this? So I don't have a podcast. I don't want a podcast. I like it. It is not interesting to me. It is not something I want to do. So I always tell people, I'm like, if you want to have a podcast, be passionate about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to have
be true about anything.
Otherwise, you're going to have a crappy podcast.
Oh, tell me about it. I've seen like, it breaks my heart when people kill their passions because they took the wrong road to get there. Yeah. You know?
Right, totally.
Oh, man. Yeah. And I had a student one time ask me that, how do I make my podcast not boring? And I was like, are you bored on your own show?
Yeah, forget it.
What are you doing, honey? Like, let's do something different. And that can be a very vulnerable question. So I try not to come at it with such like, energy. But there is a vulnerability aspect of, I feel like, especially as an entrepreneur, I'm doing everything I can to make this business successful. And then those blind spots of what I don't know that I don't know, those can be very scary for an expert to look into.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know, especially in marketing.
Yeah, totally. And podcasting is one of those things. If you as the podcast host don't want to listen to your own podcast, then forget about it. So for a couple of years, like I got one of the very early LinkedIn Live broadcast licenses, like before they opened it up to everybody. And I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to like take advantage of this and make sure that I can do this. So I stood up a show. And it was called Brand New World, like back to this like idea. Do you name it after yourself or whatever? And this was something that was coming out of the pandemic. And I was like, it is a brand new world. The world of branding has changed completely. And this is a platform for me to be able to share my very smart friends and clients and colleagues and other thought leaders on, you know, the subject of branding and business and things like that. Well, I liked it, but I got tired doing it. I consider myself to be like a pretty high functioning introvert. Yeah. Like I have my extroversion moments, but then there are times like I'm done with this conversation. Goodbye.
Yeah. And I'm going to recharge in the bath, please. Thank you.
And it got hard for me. It got really hard. And I think the content then got really stale and uninteresting. Because like when I'm interested in a conversation, the conversation becomes fun. And then it's like people who are just voyeurs and they're just like looking at a cool conversation. It started to be, I had a really hard time getting guests who were also interesting. I feel like I'm a great conversationalist and I can ask really good questions and stuff. But then if I was bored, it just like, it
You could tell.
sapped the life out of it and whatever. So I shut it down because that was like, I was doing it out of service to the audience, not to sell something. I felt like it was my duty, my responsibility to share my network and my ecosystem with other people. And I was doing that. And then I was done.
So yeah, was there like an ROI for you? Like we only do things if there's a return on investment, not just monetarily.
Yeah.
Right. Either it gives us a sense of fulfillment. It fills one of Tony Robbins' 6, buckets, or Maslow's hierarchy of life.
Sure.
They could be.
No. It was about self-actualization for me. And it's interesting. So like I talk about the books, like in terms
I was
of
really
the color.
interested about this one. Yeah.
So this book, like where this book starts is at the beginning of the pandemic, where I was in 2019, 2020, I was working almost full time as a professional speaker, not like where I get on stages and I sell stuff to people, but where companies and conferences and organizations hire me to come. They pay me a big fee to speak to an audience and share information with them. And I was traveling around, and that's how I was spending all my time.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit, whatever day that was, they shut down the airports. And then the first conference to go was South by Southwest, which was where I was launching some new content. I hadn't been there since 2019, so 2020. And they canceled South by Southwest. And I thought, oh my gosh, my life is about to change.
Is that what all your income was coming in through there?
I mean, I have a company that was generating money, but I wasn't working
like what, $25,000 a speaking gig, something like that? Yeah, that's significant.
It was a significant amount of money for me to have it like go away,
evaporate.
And I was less worried about the money. I was more worried about what am I going to do with my time, right?
Yeah.
And the people who worked at my company, they're like, "Oh hell no, you are not coming back to work full time." Right?
Oh my gosh.
So I really sat there and I had a moment and I was thinking, like, what can I do with my time? And what really dawned on me was there's never been a time more important than now to give my expertise away for free without looking for anything in return. And that's where this book starts is I like so many other people were doing at the beginning of the pandemic, I was looking for assistance, and then other people were looking for assistance from me. And I was like, you know what? I have this incredible ecosystem of people that I can share with everyone else. Plus, I have branding and marketing knowledge, and I can help people like maintain these irrational loyalty connections during a time that is more turbulent than you can ever imagine, right? So I took to the internet and I started giving away information for free without looking for anything in return. And while that was going on in the background, the leadership team at my company was like, please don't come back to work. Please don't come back to work. Like, we need you just out there doing whatever you're doing. Maybe it'll help us sell some stuff, right? And what happened was people started coming to me and asking me, they were leaning forward, telling me what they wanted to buy from me, which was not B2B technology and professional services marketing. What they wanted was, how do I become you? Like, I want to write my book. I want to have a speaking platform. I want to share my expertise with other people. And I became my own case study. And so
that's the best.
Yeah. And what this book is about, I'm sorry, I hit the microphone.
Oh, no, you're fine.
What this book is about, it's like the subtitle is Cultivate Your Human Authority to Ignite Irrational Brand Loyalty, right?
And when I think of irrational brand loyalty, I think about exactly what you said, was when shit hits the fan and you can't afford anything, you still buy that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Like,
and that was going on during the pandemic, right?
Yep.
And, irrational loyalty, like how I define that is irrational loyalty is when people are so indelibly bonded to your brand that they'd feel like they were cheating on you if they were to choose an alternative.
That's your, this is your,
Yep. And 100%, it's like you feel like you have to have it. It's indispensable to you and it's part of who you are. And so brands that engender that quality of irrational loyalty, they can endure. They can endure the bad times. They can endure the times where people don't have any money to buy it.
Yeah.
They can endure the times when they unfortunately screw up. And as brands, we all
will. We'll take our turn.
We all will, right? Exactly. How many times have you bought something where you're like, well, this is a disappointment. The last version of that was a lot better. It happens all the time.
It happens, especially in restaurants.
Oh.
Especially in restaurants when they're supposed to be cookie cutter and you go and like, that wasn't so good.
Yeah. You have an expectation, you have memories, you have these bonds, like, you know, there's like a mystique and nostalgia around it, and then they disappoint you. And I think in Irrational Loyalty, I tell this story about a favorite brand of ice cream from Texas, right?
Yes.
And in Texas, Bluebell ice cream. It's like
that's known countrywide. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a friend who moved here from Italy, and he said that is the closest thing to Italian ice cream that I can find here in the U.S. Only buy that one.
And it's so interesting, right? Because it's like mass produced in Brenham, Texas.
Some factory somewhere.
But back in 2015, they tried to kill us. Like they had a listeria breakout in their main manufacturing plant. 3 people died, 8 people got deathly ill. But what the brand did afterwards is absolutely legendary. You know, they took all the ice cream off the shelves. They took full responsibility. They opened the covers. They invited people in to investigate. And then when the ice cream came back on the market, probably 2 years later, people were lined up out the door, down the street, around the corner to get their hands on a half a gallon of vanilla ice cream.
Yeah.
And I was like, that ice cream literally killed people. So there's nothing more irrational than being willing to eat a product that killed people.
Yeah, no kidding.
But your brand is a set of actions that speak way louder than marketing.
You're speaking to my soul right now, because as our company is growing, no one cares more about their brand than the brand owner.
Right.
I believe Gary Vee when he says that. No one will care more about your company.
Oh, it says on my company's website, like the headline on the homepage says, nobody loves your brand as much as you do.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So when you hire people that are responsible for taking care of other people that interface with your brand, that's a huge challenge, because
they're an extension of your brand. They are your brand.
Yeah.
They're ambassadors for the brand. They're the embodiment. They're the living, breathing billboard for the brand.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still learning how to find people that want to embody that brand, and as much as I do, and maybe I just need a breakthrough on it or something, but I'm in my head, I'm stuck like, no one will care about this more than me. And in some ways I've had to let go, because no one will care about it more than me. That means they will not do as good a job, right, as I will on whatever given task, but I have to hand stuff off. But I also don't want to erode the brand by doing that.
I think that's where things like making sure that you're very clear on mission, vision, values. You have a set of like unique, ownable, repeatable core values that everyone in the organization, they don't just know them, but they live them.
They embody
That's
them.
one place where you can ensure that your brand is going to be highly extensible. Another place to do that is through the documentation of what the brand is. And I tell people, building a really strong brand, building a winning brand that's one of the best brands in the world, it really is only 4 things. And that is aiming your brand at an ideal archetypal customer. Imagine, if you will, every single employee of your organization, any of your organizations, who is so clear on who the ideal customer is. They know their name. They know what they look like. They know what kind of shoes they wore to work today. They know what they drove to the office. They know what movies they see, what they care about, what they measure themselves on. So aim your brand at a singular, ideal, archetypal customer and indoctrinate everyone through the entire organization who that person is. Number 2, make sure that you have a brand who becomes part of that person's self-image. That requires you to know, what is our customer's story for their life?
Yeah.
Like, what is their hero's journey? And when they stand on top of the hill and they plant the flag, what does that look like? Because we are part of who they are. So I always tell people, you know, imagine if they're wearing a T-shirt emblazoned with your logo. What do you want that to say about
thought
them
so much about that.
as they walk around in the earth? Number 3, make sure that you create a brand that isn't just different, it's truly singular. Tease out what are the unique attributes of your brand that no one else can imitate. We do that by asking the question of, what's the one thing you get from this brand that you don't get from anyone else? People really struggle with that one, but that's where all the money is to be made, because the best brands in the world are not just different. They truly are unique. And, you know, whatever you're doing, whatever I'm doing, I tell people all the time, you can't swing a cat over your head here in northern Utah and not hit 150 other people who do exactly what I do.
I love your visuals. They are my
Well,
favorite.
thank you. they've been honed over years and years of speaking. But this idea that there are other people who do exactly what you do. What do they get from you that they don't get from anyone else?
Do you have people ask their audiences this? Like actually
Oh, yeah.
poll
If you
their
don't know
audience?
the answer to these questions, you ask people. You go out there and you ask and you say, what do you get from me that you don't get from anyone else?
I'd be curious if it matches what I think it is.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I went out and I asked people, I was like, what do you get from me that you don't get from anyone else? They said, we get a proverbial kick in the pants.
Yeah.
They're like, they can buy marketing services and strategy and research and positioning and messaging. They can buy that from many other firms. And there are a lot of amazing firms all over the United States, all over the world who do exactly what we do. But the one thing they get from us is they get the kick in the pants, right? So figuring out like, what is that one thing? Here's a hint. It's never a feature.
No, it's always a result or people call it a benefit too.
Yeah. I mean, I drove here today in a luxury midsize SUV. It happens to be a Porsche. There are Audis that do exactly the same. There are Lexuses that do exactly the same. Like you can buy a Mazda that does exactly the same. But what is it about the brand? What is that unique attribute, that one thing? And so it's really important to figure that out. So we talked about three of the four things that the best brands in the world do, the fourth thing that they do. And this is really where the door opens up. This is sort of like the branding is sex thing. And that is that the best brands in the world make their customers the hero in the story.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
So I tell people all the time, I'm like, get out your mobile phone, open up your company website, your brand website. If the first word on the page is the word we, or it's your company name, you're doing it wrong. Think about putting your customer in the center of the conversation. And that's whether you're a content creator or you're selling widgets or you're digging ditches, whatever it is, your customer gets to be the hero in that. And you know what? If you do nothing else in branding, do that one thing, which is to really, really put the end customer, the end consumer, whatever it is, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a speaking engagement, whether it's a book you're writing, or you're legitimately selling services or products, put that person in the center of the conversation and make it about them and what they will experience through the use of your brand. And you'll be that much further ahead than everyone else.
I feel like that's so potent, especially for the world of influencership that we live in right now. When 2020 happened, it begat this world and this rise of the individual.
Oh my gosh, we gave everybody a ring light,
right?
And a camera and a microphone, and then all of a sudden they're a coach, they're an expert, they're an authority, they're an influencer.
I couldn't have said it better.
We lowered the bar.
Oh, we dramatically did, and now we have people with gabillions of followers that it's become very egocentric, and companies that build
self-indulgent.
Oh yeah, and companies have been formed on the self-indulgence and the ego, and I've had front row seats to many of those companies, and their erosion is so fast because once we realize that we're just there to feed them, what are we here for? Like it doesn't make sense as an employee, as a consumer. And when I left one of the companies that I worked for, it was because I couldn't see a future in it as a consumer of the product for myself. And I totally wanted to switch that when I built this brand. And I said, I told all my students, I said, I want your name on the front page of my newspaper. I want your face. I want your stories. I want your wins to be the whole headline of why we're here. And yet we still have to. If we're creating a brand around our own name, like I've done, I still have to have an element of me on the screen.
Yeah.
Right. So it's this balance. It's this harmony of how do we set ourselves up as an authority while still making our audience the forefront of our company.
Yeah. So and that's a really good question. And like, the narrative about like being sort of there and having a front row seat to things kind of falling apart. In Texas, we have this saying like all hat, no cattle, right? Which is like that's a lot of like sort of like influencerhood kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like you can totally see through it. You know why? Because it's not authentic.
Yeah.
And when I talk about like what is the formula to build individual brand authority, basically it's having a passion, having a clear platform, and then the authenticity and sincerity to want to give to other people without asking for anything in return. Believe it or don't, people will pay you for that if it's truly authentic.
Yep.
Like when you say things like, I want to see your face on the front page of the paper, I want it to be your headline, you are giving to them without any obligation of anything in return, right?
Yeah.
People are not afraid to buy things. People are afraid to look stupid.
That's brilliant.
Right?
I hope you have that on a shirt somewhere.
I know. Well, I think we're going to make shirts after this.
I know, right?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they're afraid. What makes people look stupid, in your opinion, when they buy something?
Well, what makes people look stupid is when they feel stupid,
Yeah.
right? That's what makes them look stupid. But, the idea is like people are not afraid to spend money. They're not afraid to spend money with you. They're afraid to feel stupid and look stupid for having spent the money on something that isn't worth it.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And so, there's this notion of like, what is valuable? Well, things are worth what people are willing to pay for them. Make your stuff worth people paying for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Right. How do you do that? You give it away for free. And then people will lean forward to buy from you whatever is, sort of that inside track. It's this interesting nuance. You can tell when you're being sold, right? You can tell when you're being transacted.
The conversation totally shifts energetically. It's the weirdest thing. Having been on hundreds and hundreds of sales calls, I remember being the salesperson, and then it shifted from goal, dream, vision, pain, all of this stuff to, okay, price. And because it came because
all the air out of the room too, doesn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of it came from my former issues around money and around not having it and coming from food stamps and all that. But it really became so disgusting in my mouth when it shifted that way, and it disserved the person on the phone with me because they felt unhappy with what they bought. And even though...
Because they felt stupid.
Yeah.
Or they felt like they looked stupid for having spent the money because it didn't have the value, right? So it's interesting because branding kind of feeds into like the notion of what's the sweet spot for pricing something. And the sweet spot, like the optimal price point, is somewhere between when people don't question the worth of something, right? Like things can be priced so low that people are like, well, it's probably, it's probably not worth it. And things can be priced so high that the perception of value then becomes devalued. Somewhere in between those two things is this optimal price point. You, as the human being delivering the brand experience, delivering the authority, like sharing the vision for what the world looks like when their problem is solved, your job is to show them something and have them come to the conclusion that how you've priced it is at the optimal price point.
Yeah.
That nuance is really hard for people to understand. But and I do this all the time. I find myself sometimes like at the grocery store. I'm a huge fan of Harmon's. It's like my go-to
we love
grocery.
that.
I love Harmon's. And I find myself sometimes like looking at a delicious white flesh peach that's like $6.99 a pound. And I'm like, is it worth it? What's the value? 9 times out of 10, I still buy it. But I have to like go through that in my head. Because I know I can go to Smith's down the street and I can get a peach like they're regularly like $3.99 a pound. But like, what am I getting for... It's a 360-degree experience. It's just the shopping experience. It's the smell. It's the touch. It's the cleanliness of the store. It's the helpful associates. It's, all of those things surrounding it. It's the fact that this store will sell me half a spaghetti squash, right? That's how they won me over. And then I'm like, yeah, it's worth it to me to pay $7 a pound for this. So it all goes back to this, like the notion of sales. Sales is about transacting. Right? And marketing and sales, they have to go together. You have to create that experience so that people will feel like it's #worth it when they go to throw down their money, and then they don't feel stupid for having spent the money.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I don't know why we're on such a sales tangent, but
because it marries so together with marketing.
Yeah.
Right? In order for the sales process to work, and maybe it comes back to this too, because marketing, we pay money to find people.
Yeah.
In marketing, it makes me think about all of the marketing elements that I've seen. Now, people pay $3 million for a Super Bowl commercial just to be exposed.
Oh yeah, and
to
all
people.
they're getting is brand awareness.
All,
they're not even like moving those people through the funnel.
No,
They're
that's just
like,
a touch.
Yep.
That's one of the 22 touches that they needed. It makes me think of, what is it, Lamborghini or some, there's a car company that doesn't have TV commercials because their
Tesla
audience
has never done a television ad.
No.
Because they don't need to.
No, and that's not where their audience is.
Right.
Right? I think it was Lamborghini that specifically said, we don't have TV commercials because our audience doesn't watch TV.
Yeah.
And that blew me away.
Yeah.
You know, and then there's this other element. I was talking to Kimberly Spencer. She owns a podcast agency, and she's actually doing today's National Podcasting Day. So that's cool,
okay.
right? So here we are.
All right, here I am.
But
Yay.
yeah. So she has this phrase that says, you have to understand your client avatar so well, but also understand at what point in their journey do they need you?
Yes.
And that's a question that I have been chewing on ever since she said that. I'm like, oh, I might know my ideal client, but what is happening in their lives that says
and that's that ideal customer like exercise that I was telling you about, which is this idea of like drawing the picture of who they are. Well, you need to know, how old are they? How many kids do they have? What is their relationship status? What is going on all around them and inside of them, and how are you vital to them, right? And at what point are you most vital? Because, I tell people this all the time, and you and I were talking about this. I said, yeah, I've been like coaching people on establishing a footprint of authority, building an authority brand, actually getting to the place that they need to go. I'm not looking for people who are at the beginning of this journey.
No.
I'm looking for people who are 75% of the way there, and they need that extra boost to like close the gap of that final frontier, that final 25%, where they're like, I actually want to create meaningful change in this world through my authority, my own personal authority, and they're having trouble closing that last gap. I know that's when they need me. There's all kinds of other resources for them that frankly are far more accessible and less expensive and less intensive than what I would provide them. So knowing exactly where they are in that moment is so important. One of the brands that I worked with for many, many years is this online food website called allrecipes.com.
Oh, I know them.
Okay.
Yeah. They used to sell recipe cards. I subscribed to their card delivery service back when I had a little recipe box.
Well, this is a brand that started out, basically, they were like the Craigslist of recipes. And when they were first acquired by Reader's Digest, this guy, I can't even remember what year this was, like maybe 2012 or something like that. They were acquired for $65 million. And Reader's Digest was like, what do we do with this brand? So
wait, they bought them and didn't know what to do?
They knew that there was they knew that the world of online recipes and food content was going to be big. And it's a massive industry.
Oh, it's a huge market. I have a friend that's a photographer for that market.
It is.
That's what she does.
And I worked with a ton of these online food brands, right? But this was the first, right? And they had a very, very smart, sort of prescient CEO. And she was like, we need to figure out what is the problem that we solve and what is the conceptual space that we occupy, because this area is getting crowded and it's going to happen fast, right?
Yep.
And through our research, and when I say research, like we did everything from my team and we went into people's homes and we sat around and watched them cook dinner.
No kidding?
No
like
kidding.
The Nielsen
That's called
family.
ethnography. It's sort of like what Jane Goodall did when she lived with the apes. Like,
yeah.
I had field researchers on my team, and I personally did this. We went to people's homes all over the country to try to understand what's going on during the dinner hour. What are the challenges? And the challenges that we learned were things like, and I'm sure you've experienced this, kids versus veggies, right?
Or husbands versus veggies sometimes.
Or whatever it is, right? So like really trying to understand what is the experience, like what's going on in the household, what are the feelings, what are the emotions, what's the commotion that's going on.
Oh, it's like I need to make dinner, but I don't have this ingredient. I also don't have to go to the store. And gosh, I don't forget the ingredient. I just need to put food in their bellies before they go to bed. Do I microwave it? There's guilt around that. Like all of those 100%, things.
100%, all of these things. And all recipes became very, very clear on at what stage do we come in and what is the precise moment, what is the problem that we solve? And the way we summarized that was, what's for dinner tonight? right? Like at that precise moment where for me, it always was like when my daughter was at home with me, she's 27 years old and she's solving this problem for herself now. But like you open the refrigerator door and you're like this. Right?
And you stare into the abyss.
And there's only like 7 different ways you can combine chicken, rice, and broccoli, right? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's solving the problem of like, what's for dinner tonight? And when they understood that, it opened up a ton of new territory for them because they used to think they were for home cooks. And home cooking, and you mentioned this just a second ago, home cooking is everything from I need to like throw some food into these children's bellies, right? It's that, and maybe using a combination of prepared foods or semi-prepared foods or a bag of salad, for instance, or whatever. It's that, or it's on the other end of the spectrum, which is like it's every single thing prepared precisely from scratch using whole original ingredients, like Thanksgiving dinner every single day. That's what we want, but it's not realistic. And so when this brand figured out this is our precise moment, this is our role and our relevance, and this is where we belong inside the customer's heart and their psyche, they solved that problem. What happened for them? It opened up all kinds of new financial territory because now they could invite advertisers onto the platform like the bagged salad, Rice-A-Roni, all these things that previously when they were like, we're just for home cooks, it was only gold medal flour or, Fleischmann's yeast. Now it was all of that. Plus it was Toyota, which is like, how are you going to get these kids from their thing to their next thing and feed them at the same time, right?
Wow.
They were starting to solve problems for people. So when you know where in the customer's journey you belong, what the problem is that you solve for them, you can emanate out from there to pick up a bigger chunk of their life, but you need to know the starting point. And that's exactly what you said there by like understanding where in their journey do they need you.
Well, right? I've had this question rolling around in my head and I've been really resistant to it, and you're the perfect person to ask. So in my personal journey, I have this demographic of people that I serve, and there's this demographic that I honestly, and this is embarrassing for me, I've been really resistant to. And it's the demographic of coaches. And here's why I've been resistant, because the coach name has been bastardized. The name coach means nothing anymore. It could be someone totally legitimate and that knows their stuff, that has a track record, or it could be the life coach who's supposed to help you solve all your life problems, but they only just turned 18 and they bought a ring light. And that
I talk about this all the time. And like
drives me nuts.
Yeah, God bless people like Tony Robbins who started Mastermind, which is, basically the premise of that is everybody has some information to share. Well, it's not all worthwhile.
No, and I don't want to back all of it.
Yeah.
You know, so and I've been resistant to saying I help coaches because of this, even though there are coaches that
I'm resistant to saying that I coach.
Yeah, see, and
you know
that's
what I
the
mean?
thing.
Because I feel like I feel like the practice has been devalued because we opened up the world to say that anybody who has an idea or an instructional that they want to share, that they are now a coach.
Yeah.
Coaches need us. Like I work with a huge coaching organization. They're called Scaling Up Coaches. And they're probably about 300 coaches worldwide. They go through a very, very rigorous certification process. And most of these people are they're formerly CEOs of at least mid-market companies that have had successful exits. So they're kind of the real deal. And these are folks who genuinely want to give back to the world to prevent other entrepreneurs and the leaders of mid-market scale-up companies, to prevent them from making the same mistakes they made.
Right.
They have a certification. They pay a lot of money for it. They go to a lot of schooling. They have to go through exams and oral certifications and things like that. And they build their own practices. Like I've been a marketing partner to this organization for probably close to 8 years at this point. Those coaches who are super legit, they need the voodoo that we do, right? Because even more so now than ever, because it's such a crowded field for people to stand out. If you're struggling with helping coaches, maybe you need to niche down even further.
And that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
How do they talk about themselves, and how do they identify themselves, and what do they feel sets them apart as legitimate?
You have to do
coaches.
this ideal customer archetype.
I got to do it
exercise.
again because I didn't.
You have to do it again. Draw a picture of them again. Like, do they have a certification that they spent a lot of money on? Maybe that's like one of the prime things that makes them a really good client for you. Are they someone who already has clients? Do they have clients and they want to serve more of their ideal customer? Are they looking, when I work with coaches, and I work with a ton of coaches, when I work with coaches, I'm looking for a particular problem they have, which is like, I'm trying to stand out in a sea of sameness. I know that I have something singular that I bring to the table. It's difficult for me to articulate that. So I like sort of screen those people in. Like, I love working with coaches. I just don't like saying that I coach coaches, and I don't like saying that I coach. It's like when part of your brand becomes embarrassing to talk about, then you know you have a problem. I struggle with it too.
We need to create a new word. But that means actual legitimate results. A coach, we need to create it. Mentor is not strong enough. Teacher is not strong enough. They tried to do it with colleges and PhDs, and that doesn't mean anything anymore.
Right. And then it's interesting. Like, I made the switch where I was like, am I really more focused on consultants? But then I don't like the consulting business model, because consultants are incentivized to prolong problems, aren't they?
Same with therapists.
Yeah, exactly. It's a business model. Coaches are there, like, truly to empower other people to be in their zone of genius and achieve.
Yes.
If a coach is really good, they should coach you for a period of time and then move you maybe to your next coach.
Yeah, coaches are there to make sure you win games.
Yeah.
That's what coaches are there for.
And it could be the game of business. It could be the game of life or whatever. But, be wary of life coaches who have no life experience. It's kind of like, I don't take relationship advice from divorced people, nor do I espouse relationship advice being a divorced person. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like
I don't take health advice from the overweight people. I'm just going to say it. Like the person that built. Have you ever looked at a picture of the person that is in charge of the government's health system? Oh my gosh. I would never take health advice from that person. There's like 8 chins to get through, and like the obesities. I'm like, you're writing our food code and the nutrition facts, and you're in charge of the food pyramid? Excuse the hell out of me.
Yeah.
No way. Anyway, I could go off on that forever.
Yeah. But that goes back to this notion of authority.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And authority requires you to have a unique point of view, credibility and resonance, authenticity, and a desire to share it with other people, right? And that authenticity factor, I think that's what you're talking about. It's like, I'm not taking health advice from somebody who is morbidly obese.
Right.
Right. And so you can't, they always say they're like, those who can't do teach.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know that I don't think that's a good policy.
I don't think, no, it doesn't work for very long. You'll find that those companies crumble.
I think about the coach. I have coaches. Like, I still have coaches. I
do
have
too.
A leadership coach. I have a business coach. I have a sort of like mind, body, spirit kind of relationship coach that I have spoken to in the past. And, every once in a while, I like dip back into her stuff. They're there when I need them. Right. And you think about like all the really great athletes, it's really easy to like go to pro athletes. They don't have coaches.
Oh, Tim Grover. I don't know if you met him.
I haven't met him.
Oh my gosh. I think he was Michael Jordan's coach. And I listened to him speak on stage, and I was like, holy cow, this guy is like jaw-droppingly stunning, like just mind hack. Oh, yeah. I met him backstage at an event, and it was oh man, backstage at these big events where there are a ton of amazing keynote speakers. It's a circus back there, not only for logistics, but also like just if you stand backstage, kind of like they did in Unbreakable when Bruce Willis is in the train station and you're just sensing everyone's energy.
Yeah,
it's like that. It's like, oh my gosh, there some ego just walked by, some self-centeredness just walked by, but Tim walked up to me, and he was the only person in the circle to say, "Tell me about you. What do you do?" And I was like, "You just taught me a million things." Just by asking me,
right?
And he's this, and everyone was like, "Here, take a picture with me. Let me ride on the coattails of your legitimacy by saying that you endorsed me through a selfie." That was the unsaid words. And then Tim was like, "Can I get your phone number?" And I'm like, "Holy cow! This is you're teaching me so much. And it's this whole thing that you've been saying about the audience first, the consumer
giving
first.
to them.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. For me, my similar experience to that was I spoke at an event where Brene Brown was also a speaker.
Yeah.
Like, just to be in the same room with her, this is the most down to earth, authentic, like no ego kind of person. Like, she's become, she's certified friend of Oprah at this point, right?
Yeah, certified
and
friend. Here's my certificate.
Yeah, exactly. But she's like
she's the name in the industry,
and she's massive, and she's a huge name. Like, she is the most down to earth, just natural, be yourself kind of person that you could ever imagine. And she's a researcher by trade. Like, she came from the University of Houston, not even like a top tier.
Yeah, it's not Harvard, blah, blah,
yeah,
blah.
exactly. Or whatever. She's like, yeah, I started out my career doing research on shame. And she is the most plain talking, down to earth kind of person who I think on stage, off stage, backstage, she is 100% herself. She's
That's
just
attractive to me.
Really, really authentic, right?
Yeah.
And in the same way, like you described Coach Grover here, the same thing. She was like, tell me about you. What are you going to be talking about? I was like, okay, well, at this particular conference, I am the only person who is talking about actual business content. And she was like, oh, tell me more about that. And then, she asked me, she's like, I hear something in your voice that sounds like you're nervous about that or whatever. And I said, well, I'm going to stand out because everybody else was there talking about personal and professional growth and mindset. And I was like, all right, I'm coming in. I'm going to teach you in 4 steps how to build your brand. And I felt really uncomfortable about that. But she showed regard for me and my humanity.
Yeah. Which is back to this H to H.
Yeah. Human to human.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And she's somebody who is like a human to human brand. I don't know if I there's a bunch of case studies in this
I need to
book.
read all of these.
So if you like to listen to books, both of these, I have the audio.
Do you narrate them yourself?
I do. I narrate my own books.
Good.
This one, I don't know why. This book came out in 2023. It's a big book. It's a long book. The whole idea of recording the audio has seemed really daunting to me. Have you ever recorded an audio book?
Oh, no, but I have a friend of mine that has, and just saying that paragraph 3 times, they end up reading the book 3 times over the course of stop, re-record, sneeze, blah, 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 blah. It is a huge task.
It fires up like every atom and fiber of my imposter syndrome.
Oh, really? Even though you wrote the book?
Oh, yeah. Like reading your own book out loud with a producer, then having you go back and reread that passage, or like when you go back and do the punch-ins and all that kind of stuff, like the itty bitty shitty committee. And over the last year, I just not wanted to go back there.
Yeah.
It's so interesting.
I know a lot of people that go to AI to read their books now.
No,
I don't think I want to do that.
No, what people love about the audiobooks and what they love about reading my books, they're like, it's in your voice. It's like you're sitting right there with me. And the secret is how I wrote these books. So here's the thing. I'm going to look right at the camera and say,
Boom.
Do not write your books with AI.
You don't want to embark on a journey every other paragraph. That's what drives me crazy.
Embark on a journey. It's garbage, right? So I dictated my books.
Yeah.
I worked with a collaborator I outlined everything. Like this all comes from me 100%. But what I did was I outlined everything and I sort of figured out what's the story arc? What do I need to get across? I did book positioning for myself and all that kind of stuff. And then I had another person interview me on every single point. And we recorded all of the audio of all of those interviews.
That's brilliant.
Then I used AI to do a transcription of those conversations.
Yep.
So they were my words. And then I wrote the manuscripts for these books from those transcripts. So they were actually my own words. Now, I think there are ways with AI today where you could take such a transcript like that and you could train an AI. Like,
you can.
AI to write my voice. And I'm prolific. I have 3 books and I have thousands of articles online that I've contributed to where I always say exactly the same thing. So my voice is very, very clear. I would trust AI maybe to create a first draft of a manuscript.
But not without your lipstick at the end.
Right.
You have to be the final touch.
Yeah. So I encourage people, because your authority is your brand, and you want it to be authentic and you want it to be you, I encourage people to do as much as they can to actually write their own books. I don't want to read garbage that was generated by AI.
No, and I help people write books with AI. However, it's just like you said, I'm not going to let AI be the final draft. It's there as a tool to help you organize and order your thoughts sequentially in a way that makes sense. And I've seen books written without help, and they are a rambling word salad of a mess. And like, I don't follow you. I don't understand. You've got 6 analogies going, and I don't get it. I think AI could have been a useful tool there.
In those cases, absolutely. And it is just a tool. But, you know, AI has a marketing problem. And AI can't solve AI's marketing problem. And that should be that should be poignant and pointed to people just to understand. Like, I'm curious why AI can't solve AI's marketing problem. And that's because like you require humanity.
Yeah.
And humanity is part of every brand. If you're writing a book, if you're creating your keynote presentation, if you're establishing a footprint through video or written content online, you want to cultivate community. AI doesn't cultivate community. Humans cultivate community. And so I'm a huge proponent of AI. Like, we're looking for new ways to use AI in my business all day,
If you
every
don't,
day.
you'll get run over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. At the same time, though, the authenticity and humanity and the relationships that we have are essential to the brand.
Yeah.
And, you know, nothing makes me crazier than going to an event and having that one branding talk where they're like, all right, I'm going to show you in 3 minutes how you can create a brand using AI. So first you're going to use this, then you're going to use ChatGPT to write your brand narrative. And then you're going to go to Midjourney and develop a logo. And then you're going to go to, you know, this thing and you're going to create a name and whatever. Garbage in, garbage out. Right? And branding is the cultivation of emotional connections with your audience, with that audience who's most highly predictive of your success. You can't do that by sitting behind a machine and mashing on the keys.
I want to have a part 2 of this and just like talk about automation and AI and how that affects branding and affects marketing and all of that. I'm going to absorb all of the books that you have
and you can
produced.
listen to these too. And like, if you can offer any words of encouragement to me to like finally read this darn book.
Here's what I'm going to say, Deb. Like, I am one of the people who is desperate for this. And I am a person that will read a book in the tub and highlight stuff and then drop the book and ruin it. But I'm also the mom who has 6 kids who drives around, and I think about my business because we were talking before we hopped on. This is a family affair.
Yeah.
I think about my business as I'm dropping my kids off at school. And I think about my business as I'm running through the car wash. And I think about my business. My husband and I talk business on date nights. And a lot of people are like, oh, you need to do better. We love it.
Well, it's part of who you are.
It is part of who we are. And there's a reason we built it together. And if I can digest your material by listening to it, otherwise I don't get it at all, that's a problem.
Yeah.
And I would rather have it in a way that's auditorily digestible rather than either not getting it at all or it being just taking too long to get it. So while I am going to read that,
you're encouraging me to go ahead and record the book.
Yes, if there's any boot I can put in your butt, this is it.
All right. Okay.
Right?
Boot inserted. All right. That's good. I'm just, you know, I recorded my first book. I went into a studio in Austin and I worked with a producer. I want to say we probably did 7 full day recording sessions to get it right. The second book, I actually recorded the audio during the pandemic. So I did it all remotely.
Wow.
Where I did it in a home studio, pretty much like this.
Yeah.
This book, I feel like I want to go into a studio and just like do it in 2 days. Like, I know people who've recorded their audiobooks. They do it like celebrity style, where they fly to LA, they go to a big fancy studio. I need something that's sort of like in between that. I just like be brief, be brilliant, be done. I just need to be done with it. So that was very encouraging what you said and very helpful, because you are a person that I admire. And I think, all right, that's a good push.
Here's a second push. You ready for this one?
Yeah.
Publicly set a deadline and make a deposit. That'll force you to do it. Here's what I do. This is what I do.
Your husband's laughing at me now too.
Because he knows.
The
this
producer
is what
behind the scenes. He's like, all right, this is how we do this shit at home too.
I know.
Right?
Well, it is. Every morning I hop on an accountability call with people and we have consequences on the line. So if, for example, if I don't do, I have 2 meetings that I did this morning. I have our podcast that I get to do. And then now this afternoon, I get to make 3 social media posts. That's my to-do list for today.
Okay.
If I don't do that, I shave half my hair off. And he knows it and everybody in my world knows it. So guess what? It gets done because I put this weird ass consequence on it. Now, when I do it, because I do it every day this week, I get to go fix this god-awful pedicure that I have.
Yes, that's your reward. Yeah, that's an
my
interesting
reward.
color.
It is a terrible color choice. I thought it would be better. It's awful.
And it's so sad because we usually have to live with it for like 3, 4, 5 weeks.
Oh, it's been so bad.
Yeah, I didn't like. I'm still like kind of working a teal. That was a choice that I gave the nail technician the choice. I was like, "What color do you think I should have?"
Yeah,
and here I am with teal toes.
Yours looks cute. Mine is like bowling alley yellow. It's
bowling alley yellow.
You know,
yeah, it looked like hot dog mustard yellow to me. Looked like hot dog eating contest yellow.
Yeah,
or something.
I just carry this failure around with me.
Yeah. Okay. So I will publicly set a date to get this done. I need to get this done by like the end of this year, like New Year's. It needs to be done. Actually, you know what? I need to get it done by the start of ski season because once ski season starts,
you're a hopeless cause.
I am. Totally. Like that's my whole reason for living in Utah. So, yes, by the start of ski season, which I need to look up, like what is opening day at Alta.
Richard.
I will. Can you look
He's
it
on
up
it.
real quick?
He's on it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm on it. Isn't it usually the weekend, like
It's
the day after
usually
Thanksgiving?
the day after Thanksgiving. Last year, I want to say they went a week early. They're like, surprise, surprise, we're ready.
I got to go skiing again. I freaking love it. And I've been a small handful of times.
Like
Friday, November 22nd.
November 22nd.
Friday, November 22nd. So that means that Thanksgiving is November 21st. All right. That should be enough time. And I actually met somebody terrific locally who has a studio.
Oh, dope.
And it's Brandy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I just need to like get in there and get this.
Oh, let's text her today and be like, hey, when did you have openings?
I was supposed to go on a studio tour this summer and I can't remember what happened. She had to reschedule and then I never rescheduled with her. It's all on me. So
yeah,
I have to get this done.
And what if you don't do it by that day, you can't go skiing this winter?
Oh my God.
Oh, wouldn't that be
because
awful?
I couldn't go skiing last winter because I had a really bad knee injury and had gone through 3 surgeries. So I can't miss another season. This is serious.
We just got real
Richard,
up in here.
This is serious. This is serious.
This is how we do things here. This is how we cause massive action to take place.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Massive action is about to take place. All right. Well, it's a deal.
Deal?
Right? Should we shake on it?
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah. I'm excited.
Okay, good.
Oh my
It'll
gosh.
be done by ski season. I'm going to text Brandy when I walk out of here.
Do it.
Because I'm traveling this week and I'm home for a couple days next week. Maybe I can get in and go tour the studio next week and like just schedule a day. Be brief, be brilliant, be done.
There you go.
Right?
I
Absolutely.
love this. Okay,
Right.
so where can people find your stuff?
So I think the best thing to do is just go to debgabor.com.
Okay, we'll put it in the show notes, so it'll be there for you.
debgabor.com. There's links to all 3 of these books.
Yes.
There's videos on there.
You want these, by the
there's
way. You have to see the covers
information.
on these.
Yeah, see. Ta-da.
Look at these.
Aren't
This
they
matches my
cute?
shirt.
Yeah, do you like that?
You've got this
Brandy?
Halloween theme kind of going on now,
It wasn't intentional.
but it looks brilliant. The next one be purple.
Maybe. It depends.
You're
like
the
what-
branding expert.
Yeah,
I
what's
should
that
shut
one
up.
going to be about?
I don't know.
Purple would make this
It
totally
kind of would
Halloween
look
themed. Well, and this
cool.
one kind of matches your blouse.
It really
right?
does.
Okay. So yeah, debgabor.com. Also, there's digital downloads on there that I want to let everybody know about. And also, you guys have the link for that because I want everybody to have those.
Good.
So in the spirit of just like giving away my expertise for free.
Which is so
the
beautiful.
The entire branding methodology, what I have used, my company has used for now 21 years with some of the biggest, best known household name brands, which for whatever reason, I couldn't think of them. But these are brands like the Associated Press, NPR, All Recipes we talked about, Serious Eats, Dell, all these big organizations that we've worked with all over the world. I've packaged up the methodology into like easy bite-size interactive PDF worksheets. Like it doesn't get easier than that.
I'm going to be using them, by the way.
Yeah,
I
you
need
download
desperate
them.
help.
So the exercises that I'm giving out, The ideal customer archetype exercise. That's the one where you draw a picture of who is the customer who is most highly predictive of your success. There's an exercise in there that is called the brand values pyramid. And we talked about Maslow's hierarchy, what people eat, what they drink, what they buy, what they wear, what they drive. Everything is part of their ascension up Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Brands have their own Maslow's hierarchy, and brands that get to the top, fully self-actualized brands, those are the ones that are the most unique, the most extensible, the ones that really create a competitive moat around themselves. So there's an exercise about building your brand values pyramid.
Oh, I want to do all
The
these.
third thing is called the 3 brand questions. So I told you the best brands in the world do 4 things.
Yeah.
Number 1, they aim their brand at their ideal archetypal customer, which is that ideal customer exercise. The next 3 things are summed up in 3 very, very thoughtful questions. And there's a worksheet about that. Question number 1 is, what does it say about a person that they use your brand? What does it say about them? And takes you through the process of answering that question. Question 2 is, what's the one thing that people get from your brand that they don't get from anyone else? I told you it's the proverbial kick in the ass for me, right? And number 3, precisely how do you make your customer the hero in their own story? Those 3 exercises, if you just do those 3 exercises, the strategic foundation of your brand is done.
I'm doing
Your
this.
branding is done. And I'm not talking about your logos and all that kind of stuff where people
Those will
really,
disseminate from this,
yes,
right? Because they will
absolutely.
either match
They're the last
or not.
thing you should be thinking
Right,
about,
right.
right? Those 3 things right there, if you do the ideal customer archetype, the 4 things, ideal customer archetype, answer the 3 brand questions, you have the strategic foundation for your brand. Where people really struggle is like, what am I supposed to say? Well, you can take those things. You are ready then to develop a website, develop a brand activation plan, go hire a designer to create a logo for you, or use Midjourney, God forbid, or whatever, to do that, but do it in a thoughtful and strategic way. So those exercises are included in there. There's one last exercise, which is called the Stockdale Paradox exercise. Have you ever heard of the Stockdale Paradox?
I only know the basketball name Stockdale.
So we're talking about Admiral James Stockdale, who was a prisoner of war in the Vietnam War. And he did a study of human behavior during POW encampment. And what he learned was the people who fared the best when they were imprisoned were the ones who were realistic about what was going on with them. They faced the brutal facts of their own reality. That's what he referred to them as, but still remained optimistic. And when times get really tough, you can do an exercise to face your own brutal facts and remain optimistic by actually working through things like reinvesting in your core values, renewing your focus on your mission, your vision, what it is that you want to create in the world, and then creating a very specific action plan for turning you positive coming out of negative things. So that's like a little bonus exercise that's in there when you do the download.
There's so much. I want to block off some serious time, like during my day, to walk through seriously each one of these. And
if you don't do it, are you going to shave the other side of your head?
Oh, there we go.
I don't want to see her with her head shaved. She has really
we'll make it pretty
beautiful hair.
badass if we have to, but Richard's got.
I don't want to see that either. So.
Okay. I want to look at my calendar, but I want to literally dedicate at least 2 hours a week to this, and make sure that because if you're anything like me, like I have a million things on the to-do list, and this and this and this and this the other, but I feel like if I do this or when this gets done, this is going to make either a lot of those things obsolete and unnecessary, or 10 times more powerful.
So I always tell people it brings you relentless focus.
Ooh,
right?
I like
it
that.
It helps you really put a lot of wood into one arrow, right? And you figure out like, what is that one thing? Branding is about choice, and it's more about the choice of what you don't do than it is about what you do. Going through this process, like establishing your authority brand, will help bring you focus. And a lot of things that you're like spinning your wheels on, and activities that you're doing, people that you're working with, most importantly, people that you're working with, you're like, this is very unsatisfying. They don't pay me enough. I'm over servicing them. I'm like this every night thinking about them. They're probably not an ideal customer for you. So really getting very clear on that so that you can identify those people as they walk through the door. Your brand is a magnet.
Yeah.
Think of it this way. Your brand is a magnet. It's designed to attract to you those
and
who are,
repel.
Yes.
Oh, you're probably getting there, but I was like, oh, so excited about this analogy.
Yeah, 100%. So go through these exercises, read Branding is Sex or listen to Branding is Sex. That's the how-to book. That's like where I teach you how to do all that kind of stuff. Use those exercises. The exercises come directly from the book. Like really walk through that. It's going to bring you focus that you never had before. When you have that focus and you can let all the stuff sort of like flow away, that's when the new conceptual and financial territory will open up for you and you won't feel like you're forcing it.
That's beautiful. Okay, so everyone, to get all the resources that you have, do they just go to the website?
They can go to debgabor.com.
Okay, good.
And they can search for like digital downloads on there, or I think in your show notes
we'll put the link direct.
Yeah.
Okay, so check that out in the show notes. If you're watching this live, just watch for this. This is going to be produced probably 4 weeks from now on our YouTube channel. We'll put everything there, but you can just go to Deb Gabor. Oh my gosh, debgabor.com.
It's hard to say. Isn't
hard to
it?
get out of my mouth.
Like I always thought that I wanted to hear Oprah say my name, Deb Gabor. But yeah,
one day.
debgabor.com. So think of it like that.
Go there. Go get it if you're watching live. If not, we'll put it in the show notes for you.
Awesome.
Thank you for being here. This is one of my hands down favorite episodes.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. This is one of my favorite podcast episodes. I do a ton of interviews and I appreciate the natural conversational nature of this.
I'm so glad.
It just feels like we're having lunch.
Good. That's the way I wanted to feel.
Growling?
No, we can put the microphone down.
Yeah. Mine's growling tools.
It's
Don't
lunchtime.
worry.
Right on. Okay.
Freaking love you, girl. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. This has been awesome. I really, really enjoyed it.
I'm so glad. All right, guys, that's it for this episode. Thank you for being here on the Marianne Hickman Show. Make sure you go check out Deb's resources, and we will see you in the next show.
Hey, what's up? Marianne Hickman here. Hey, listen, I hope you enjoyed that episode. We have some pretty amazing speakers on my podcast, and of course, more to come. If this is something that you enjoyed, guys, smash the like button, smash the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. I love your comments, and I respond to every single one of them personally, not a bot or an agency. So if this is something you're enjoying, tell me about it. Tell me your gold nuggets. I want to hear from you. But here's the most important thing I want you to laser in on. I told you about the podcast database. You've probably seen me post about it all over social media. I want to make sure that you get it. So here's what I want you to do. Go to mariannehickman.com/database. Once you put all of your information in there, I'm going to send you the document. You request access to it. Boom, it's unlocked. Once you're in there, my rule of thumb is to apply to 10 podcasts a month. It's very digestible. It's very easy to do. And the database gets updated twice a week. So I want you constantly checking back in there for the next podcast that fits your audience. Thank you for being here. Much love to you, and we'll see you in the next episode.